Hey guys. So today, Justin and I are going to be jumping into kind of some beginner finance talk a little bit here. And so, Justin has extensive finance background, investing multiple areas. So, we're going to be doing a bunch of different videos, and we're going to start off today just by just kind of going through some of the basics of finance. And so, um, Justin, I guess if you want to kick us off a little bit about just, how to get started when you're thinking about investing or as an investor, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I love it. So I think we should start with the theory on this of starting with who you are, what your goals are in life, and then figuring out what type of investor you need to be to make that happen. So, the traditional investment route, what most books will tell you is just dollar cost average into the S&P 500, get your 8 to 12% a year, let it compound, and then in retirement you draw down off that until you die or run out of money. That was
Right.
for me, wanting to do bigger things, that track never really sat right with me. So I think the first thing you have to decide is, do I want to play? I don't want to say safe, but play get rich for sure slowly over time and just be excellent at what I do and just dollar cost average in the stock market, buy single family home, live in it for a long time, build the equity. These are very no acumen ways to build your wealth. But if you say to
Right.
yourself, I want more. I want to be an investor and I would really want to be in that world, then your track's very different. So, an accredited investor, and what I'll tell you what that means, because all the best investments in the world, you have to be accredited to have access to them. So, you have to have, if you're a single person, $200,000 of gross income in the previous 2 years with the expectation of making that in the current year. Or if you're married, that goes to 300,000. The other way you can be accredited is to have $1 million net worth, excluding your primary residence. So
Right.
if we know that we either have to have a big income or have $1 million net worth before we can even get into that world, the way you're going to invest on the way there is very differently than if you want to take the other track. The other track, when you start saving 500 bucks a month or whatever, you just dollar cost average it in. It's very simple. But if you want to play in the other world, the minimums are usually 100,000 or more. So you have to hit that income box, the net worth box, and you have to have at least 100K cash to deploy into those types of investments. So everything I would do in the beginning would be investing in myself to get that net worth or income, and I would be doing zero investing in the stock market, real estate, anything else other than increasing my skills and income so that I can then qualify to be an accredited investor. So it's very different mindset from the beginning.
Yeah, and I love what you said there though too, is like the investing in yourself, right? And so a lot of times you hear throw $500 into this and sit and wait, which, for like you said, from a mindset standpoint, if that is where you want to be, like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're somebody that wants to take advantage of other opportunities, a lot of times investing in yourself and investing in opportunities and networking and things like that sometimes wind up being the thing that winds up paying off in the longest. But mentioning that, what are some of the things that you would say, like investing in yourself, like either that you've done or you've seen other people do? Because I think that you hear that term, but I think giving people some direction on, kind of what does that mean, or what could that mean for these individuals?
Yeah, let's say you've got $5,000, right? You're early in the journey. My bank account has 5K that I can, my bills are covered this month, but I can spend 5K invested on something. What most people would do is they buy Bitcoin or they buy something speculative and then they sit there all day and watch it like a hawk, right? Which actually kills your productivity. You're now valuing $5,000. And let's say you hit a home run and Bitcoin doubles or whatever stock you speculated on. Cool. Now you got 10 grand. Is that a lot of money for you? It's not what I want, right? So I'm very realistic
Right.
about what the dollars can produce. So I would say in the beginning, that 5 grand is much better spent on you buying a ticket to a high end event where you can go VIP and network with people that are in the VIP who have made 10 million, $100 million. So investing it in a skill set, a course to get the skills you need to earn what's going to get you to a higher level is a much better use of your capital at that point than trying to invest it in something to literally have the money make money, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Well, and I think in today's world too, it's not it's not how it was 15, 20 years ago. Like everything is so available to everybody. And it's like if you want to find places to go, events that are going on, I mean, you're talking like you said, yeah, there are some events that are 5 grand or whatever, but you can literally go to these things for $500, $1,000. So there's definitely the opportunity. It's a matter of like, do you want to get out there and do that? And when it comes to courses and things, I mean, that's part of what we're building here too, is just to provide knowledge to people. But I think that's such a thing you hear. And I think that was some awesome just advice overall for these
Yeah.
guys.
One other thing I forgot to say with that, the before you even do that, I would build your personal brand with a couple $1,000. I mean, and now you can go
Yeah.
take that into rooms and network with that.
Yeah. And I think so we're 100% going to do more videos on that specifically. Because I think that's its whole topic in it, probably like 6 topics, right? In one there. So, but let's talk a little bit more about like the passive and active, right? And ultimately, from a standpoint, there's the very basic things I think that most people know. But I guess if we can dive in a little bit more on what that means as you're in this position of growing to figure out where you want to go, I guess what do those two areas really look like?
Yeah, I think you got to also be very clear on if you're being an investor or getting into operation. A lot of people, they have their 9 to 5 and then they want to start flipping houses on the side. And they're like, I'm going to go be a real estate investor. You're not an investor if you have an active role, right? You just started a business, is what you did. It just happens to be
Right,
real estate. So my definition of investing is I give money, none of my time, and then return comes back. That's what investing is. So be very clear about your time allocation, right? You're not becoming an investor if you're flipping houses on the side. You're starting a flipping business.
right. Yeah, big time. And I think that's really the difference too. Like as we were saying, is more of the investor or operator, right? And so like you're ultimately operating that business, which that you may be the person that's actually looking for investors so that you can operate your real estate business, right? And so there's many layers that you can go there, but um, let's talk a little bit about real estate versus stock market as well. So I know there's, like we said, everybody's got their own path that they want to go down, but I think really talking about those two topics is super important as well.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of real estate for this reason. So the returns on the surface are not always what they are when you factor in um, different factors. So us just put it to you this way: if I get traditional real estate returns are about 3% on the appreciation every year, right? And the stock market, let's be generous and say 10. Depending on who you ask, it's 8 to 12. So what's a better investment of my $10,000? Am I going to make more money if I put it into real estate at 3% or the stock market at 10? Most people are going to say
Most
stock
people,
market,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
My
That's
10
where they're
grand
gonna
made me
run,
$1,000 at 10%, right?
right?
If I put that 10 grand down on $100,000 property and I get 3% on the property, I'm getting 3% of the leverage, which is 100 grand. So now I made $3,000 that year, which is what? One, two, three? What's that? Two, 3x of what I would have made in the stock market because you were getting the appreciation of the leverage you can get in real estate. So
Right.
real estate's better. That doesn't even account for the pay down of the mortgage,
That's what I
uh,
was gonna.
depreciation for your taxes, all these different factors that make it a better investment, in my opinion. But it's a little
Right.
more hands on. So there's a thing in investing, right? Like the harder it is, the harder the access it is, the more you have to have operational, touching on it. The returns will be higher. And it's very easy to just go into a brokerage and click and buy a stock. That's why those returns are going to be
Right.
muted.
Well, and I think too, when you're talking about even when you see a stock market, you see a lot of stuff going on in crypto and things like that. Like it is, unless you're. I just had this conversation with somebody who's asking me about stock trading, and I said, unless you're the person that's going to go do all of the research, and you are going to have the time, and you're going to invest in the right um, softwares and like all of that. If you're going to try and really like day trade and do that, I mean, there's people that that's all they do with their entire life. This isn't something you're just going to like, you may get lucky here and there, right? But if that's the route you want to go, you can definitely make money there, but there's also understanding what the risks are at that point in time too. And there's going to be risks in no matter what you're doing. The safe bet is most of the time is just stuffing that 500 bucks away, which is also very fine. But if you're actually looking at trying to get into investing, these are the different things that you're going to have to really take into consideration as you're on your journey to where you want to go, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so I think really from a standpoint, that I guess we can kind of wrap this up a little bit too. But what are some of the things going back? I think a lot of times people are wondering like, where can I go? What can I do to whether it be learn or network or things like that? What are some of the things that you've done that you've seen be successful over your career and the things that you're doing, just to give some people some real the guys that are listening just some real I guess pathways on where they can go.
Yeah, read a ton of books. That's where I started. Books, podcasts, and and go through that experience with the lens of not believing everything. Like pull it apart. Ask, does this information get me to where I want to go? Because just like I was saying earlier, it really depends what type of investor you want to be. You want to, play at the top. You're going to read very different books than Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. If you read Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, he's going to tell you nobody beats the stock market, dollar cost average. That's your best bet. End of discussion. And if you take that to heart, you'll never be an accredited investor playing in outsized returns where there's more risk, there's more reward. So again, it's back to the identity, and you will figure out your identity through reading all this stuff, right? So when I read The Lifestyle Investor by Justin Donald, the entire Rich Dad Poor Dad series, ABCs to real estate investing, that's where I learned that I wanted to be in real estate, but I didn't want to operate, right?
Right.
So I would rather give my money to someone like Drew, who's going to go operate the deal, and all I have to do is give him money and receive checks. That's the type of investor I figured out I wanted to be. I didn't want to be hands on. I've
Right.
My partners and I, through syndications, have 1,600 units of multifamily. I've never been to a single property. I don't want to operate. So
Right.
figuring out your investor avatar mindset will happen through the books, the podcasts, and then take that information and then get into the rooms. Go to these local meetups where people are doing these things. Go. I go to meetups about things I'm not even interested in. I like being the guy in the room that's doing something different. I'll go to it. I don't trade at all. 99% of traders lose money. That's a bad proposition. There's always an exception. I didn't want to be that person, but I'll go to an options trading meetup because I'm the only private equity guy in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're able to set yourself apart there. But I think like one of the things, and like we said, Justin, you've done an amazing job of creating not only the brand for yourself, but then putting yourself in the rooms, saying yes. We were just talking about, you're getting invited now to like go to different things, and it may not be something specific, but the relationships that you're going to wind up building in those rooms, you never know what's going to come of that, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing too, is like if you're eager and you want to learn, there's somebody out there that knows more than you that's willing to give you their knowledge, as long as you're asking for it, right? If you're looking for a handout, most of the time that's not going to end very well, right? But if you're truly there to seek knowledge and make connections and genuinely figure out how you can provide value in some way, shape, or form to that person, they're going to be much more apt to giving you their knowledge, because they were probably at some point exactly where you were at, right? And so that's a huge factor. Is don't be going into these situations looking for a handout. I think genuinely going to make connections and figure out, is there a way for me to provide this person value? If not, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna try and create a really good connection with that person and see if there's information that maybe I can learn too.
Yeah. Always lead with value and curiosity, right? Because you start popping your mouth off. You don't even know who you're talking to. This happened to me once. I was sitting next to a billionaire at a conference for an hour chatting with this guy and didn't even know, until afterwards. Um,
Right.
which, having those experiences will teach you how abundant money is. I think I was talking to Bill Walsh here in Vegas at an event the other night, and he's like, "Yeah, did you know that 12 billionaires live right here in Vegas, and I've got 10 of them on speed dial?" It's like, it's right there, which means how many hundred millionaires, how many deca millionaires? Like, there's money everywhere. You just
Yeah.
haven't been exposed to it yet, and you haven't put yourself in the crossfire of it. So,
Yeah.
uh, that's, I think, the most important thing is getting the exposure, starting to realize that these people are no different than you. They're just further along in the journey.
Right. Yeah, and I think kind of on that note too, I think being genuinely inquisitive, right? And so I think the people that are eager to learn by reading the books and the podcasts and doing all of those self things that you can do that cost you little to no money, you're going to start to obtain knowledge and be able to have conversations at a different level with somebody. And you're also going to be able to put yourself in a position to say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm still learning. I'd love to learn from you." But the person that's made a bunch of money is going to be way more apt to have that conversation with you if they see that you're genuinely inquisitive and you're putting in the work to try and become a better version of yourself in whatever way that may be, So
Yep. So
very much
when
so.
we're talking about just the baseline of investing, before we even talk about strategies, vehicles, or any of that stuff, we got to figure out who do we want to be, what's the end game. Do I want to have 100 million? Do I need 10 million? Do I just need to have a million, or whatever that is, and then reverse engineer the possibilities and choose your vehicle. I think that's
Right.
the
Lots
story.
of lots of possibilities out there. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your insight here, Justin. I know we're going to be doing more of these and more videos and stuff on finance, but that was awesome just to get pick your brain a little bit on just getting started and kind of clearly defining the investment world.